do a show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to IGN Game Scoop. I'm your host, Damon Hatfield. Joining me this week is Justin Davis, Sam Claiborne,
hey everybody,
and Jonathan Dornbush.
Charmed, I'm sure.
We've got a great show for you this week. This week is all about you. We're going to do an all listener mail show. I've selected a bunch of good emails from you
Why
this
not
week.
Listener female?
You're right. You're right. I'm making presumptions. So that means we're going to be talking about Castlevania. We're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch. We're even going to be talking about Madden because you asked about it.
Nice. Video game
I'm
or
excited.
the sports commentator?
Both.
Oh,
I am absolutely qualified to discuss Madden at length.
The
I
commentator.
think everybody
Not
here
the
is.
game.
No, but you know Madden, right?
I'm actually very excited for this year's Madden.
For the story mode.
Friday Night Lights, man.
Friday Night Lights, yeah.
But first, a little housekeeping. I know we're always picking up new listeners. If you are a new listener to the show, welcome. This is, of course, our weekly video game talk show where we discuss everything big that's happening in the world of video games across all platforms. It's usually myself, Justin, and Sam, and then we like to rotate in other IGN personalities like Jonathan this week. If you listen to the show every week, just a quick reminder that we have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/gamescoop. If you ever want to match our voices to our faces, even if you don't watch the show every week, if you went over there and hit the subscribe button, that would be a big help to us. And if you watch the show every week on YouTube, just a quick reminder that we also have an audio podcast if you ever want to listen to the show while you're mowing the lawn, doing the
Showering.
dishes, showering, sure, anything. If you ever
Not while driving, because this show is too entertaining, and you might get in an accident.
the hilarity is gonna
You'll get
send me-
a,
I think it's
a
a
deep belly laugh.
I think it's the leading cause of death in America now, actually.
Is
Listening
GameScoop.
listening to GameScoop
Yes.
while driving.
Yeah, Scoop.
we,
Very dangerous.
we all had a giant
Scoop.
celebration when we climbed from number 2 to number 1. The balloons and confetti.
All right.
It's a morbid workplace.
Let's dive into this week's emails. The first one comes from Chris in Reno. And
Nice.
his big topic is the Nintendo Switch in early access?
I've only been to Reno once, and I saw it.
Okay.
There we go. Let's dig into Reno.
Okay.
Biggest little city on earth.
This is a decade ago when my wife and I drove cross country. We moved from Iowa to California, and we drove. It was terrible. We did it in like 2.5 days.
Yeah, that's too
And we-
short.
Yeah.
And we stopped in Reno, and we were sitting at like some Denny's eating dinner, and like our entertainment right out the window was just someone getting arrested in the parking lot across the street for like it just escalated. I don't know if they were some high level person in a gang or what it was, but it was like one cop, then 2 cops, then like 10 cops, and I'm just sitting there like eating my salad, watching more and more police show up.
You got a salad from Denny's?
Well,
I don't think that's what you should
Not
order.
doing
at
Denny's.
no, but it
Denny's.
wasn't
Pancake
one of those-
salad?
It was like one of those like Buffalo Ranch.
Yeah.
Just put a bunch of garbage on my salads.
Anyway, Chris from Reno.
So what was the question?
Says, hey, Damon and the Scoopers. First off, I want to thank you guys for your weekly update on the gaming world. Your podcasts are looked forward to by many, myself included. Question. I own and am loving my Nintendo Switch, especially Zelda, but I'm still frustrated with how bare bones the OS and eShop are. It seems like Nintendo released a console far ahead of when it was truly ready for release, as we are all left waiting for many important promised features: Virtual Console, voice chat, online play. I know Microsoft and Sony are constantly updating their OS and adding features, but in my opinion, the Nintendo Switch is taking this to an extreme level. Did Nintendo release a console in early access? Do you think this trend will continue for future consoles?
Yeah, that's kind of a funny way to put it.
Yeah.
It's especially jarring if you're a longtime Nintendo fan, because Nintendo at one point with the Wii, online connected system, refused to do game updates.
Yeah.
Like games came 100% complete, and so when they started inching towards updates and DLC and stuff like that with the Wii U, that was kind of surprising. And then now it's like, okay, they released an entire console without features that they've told us are coming. That's just so un-Nintendo. I think that's interesting. But yeah, it's kind of like an early access, and I'm glad to have early access to it because I want to play Zelda on it.
I know, yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, I think that's completely fair. It's also especially notable, or it's a bad look for the Switch, because the Wii and really from the Wii on, Nintendo OSs have been kind of jam packed with fun little things to noodle and play around with, like Street Pass on the 3DS, and there were just Miiverse. Just really, really dozens of apps and interesting things for you to pop into and check out, and it was really a fun OS.
With a Nintendo feel.
Yeah, with a Nintendo feel, and then the Switch sort of sucked all that out. Even besides the promise stuff like Virtual Console and online. It's not a fun. It's a fun console to hold in your hands, but sometimes when I want to take a break from Zelda, I'm bummed that there's not a news channel or just something for me to pop into and play around.
Remember when weather was a big deal on Wii?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they
I'd
had
almost
the
forgotten.
that polling thing where you voted with people.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Just like little things for you to fly
Yeah.
around
We all
with.
did it.
Oh yeah, I did. I checked it in all the time. But I think for me at least,
yeah.
I think someone probably would hear the phrase "is the Switch in early access" with a negative connotation. At least for me right now, it hasn't affected my play with the Switch in any way. Some of these features definitely are missing, but they feel sort of more like additions to a already complete package. Like I'm playing the games I want to be playing. I can go online with Mario Kart. I have Zelda. Like I have a bunch of indies to access very easily right now. So for me, I'm okay with some of these things coming later. It's not preventing me, say, from playing a game online.
Yeah.
It is strange that we aren't getting, the paid online service until over a year probably into the console's life cycle. And it's interesting to see that approach.
We were paying for
I thought you were-
online
I thought
right
you
now.
I saw you ready to speak, and I wanted to let you.
I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah.
The Switch, we should say that it does an interesting thing where it seems like these features aren't in the OS, but they actually are, and they're hidden a little bit.
Yes,
People are talking about the game menu being these big, chunky boxes, and when the system launched, like, what's going to happen when you have like 20 games on your Switch? Like, isn't this menu just going to be impossible? But it turns out when you hit a certain threshold, the menu changes, and it never tells you that. It doesn't, it's hidden.
This happens, yeah.
Until you get enough games on your account, and then the menu looks different. And they do the same thing. They said, why can't I see my playtime? Like, I really, really love being able to see my playtime on Nintendo consoles. The Switch doesn't have that feature. And it turns out that feature just turns on after you've played a game for, I think it's a week. Once you've had a game a week,
Sounds about right.
it starts telling you how long you played the game. And so...
Seems arbitrary, but
Well, it may not be a week. It may be over a certain amount of playtime, but it's not something that's there like day one, and then it sort of the OS like unfurls itself in that way. So that's kind of neat.
Did you guys know that they added in a color reverse mode with an update
Yes,
recently?
color reverse.
So they added in black and white, which is like, again, like that could be for some kind of visual disability, something like that. But I didn't think reverse color had any applications for that, and it looks insane. It's like
Yeah.
a psychedelic like reverse color. It's just
is it like a negative? Like
yeah, like a
okay,
negative.
weird.
You can do it on your
Color
iPhone by hitting
negative.
the
I
home
don't know
button 3
why-
times.
Yeah,
You can do that on your iPhone.
Yeah, if you hit the home button 3 times.
So there must
really?
be
That's the
some
Scoop.
maybe it's related to some visual impairment or something like that to like kind of cross reference. But yeah, it looks insane when you turn it on. I love it. Wow. Yeah. So
weird,
that
yeah.
must be for
That's
like
so weird, yeah.
legibility in some situations.
And I mean,
Yeah,
at least still with the Switch, if I have the sound all the way on and I take the Joy-Cons out and put them back in, I get the little snap. So that's really all I
snap
need.
is still there.
That is still very satisfying.
Yeah.
So
I never
would
take
we-
never take my Joy-Cons off. They haven't been
I
off
do for the snap noise.
since.
well,
I did on the plane. I got really
Yeah.
tired holding my Switch, and so I took them off. Do you think we'd give the same? I know people are going to ask this in comments. So would we give this pass to like Sony and Microsoft if they released an OS
I mean,
that they promise stuff later for? And they do. I mean, that is a thing that happens.
if they released really cool hardware that has a killer app like Zelda,
Yeah.
yeah, sure, you get a pass.
yeah,
right?
I mean, I think that's something that's happening with
You
it.
have to have little things for people to browse around on. I really like on my PS4. I don't know, my Xbox One hasn't even been on in months, but my PS4, I like that you can sort of browse around and see game clips of a game when you're just going through the menu.
Like
Yeah,
YouTube.
that's nice.
Yeah.
The Switch is missing any sort of stuff to play around with when you're not playing a game.
And it is missing all the media apps,
Yeah,
which
you're right.
I
Yeah.
think is a bigger
Still-
deal than the online stuff and the Nintendo stuff and the little toys.
Yeah, and they
crazy.
haven't announced something one way or the other of a definite yes or no for those.
Why doesn't it have Netflix?
Yeah.
I know.
Why?
I know it's
Yeah,
crazy.
It's really crazy.
To be able to use Netflix download on my Switch for flights would be fantastic. I would love that.
Set that battery.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's why. Maybe it's a bad look. Maybe it's like when they're like, oh, we have a high-powered gaming console. It only has a 3-hour battery life. You're like, okay. But then once it's used as like a Netflix device, it'll really like then you'll be able to stack it 1-to-1 next to an iPad and be like, oh man, like that could be it. And maybe they don't want to draw direct comparisons.
Yeah, phrasing it as the Switch in early access, like Sam says, is an interesting way to put it. But as Jonathan points out, I don't think it's a negative. I think I'm glad we were able to get it and get into Zelda earlier than like waiting for Mario.
Steam
in the
early
fall or
access,
whatever.
people play all those games more than a lot of other completely released games.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
it's a positive thing.
Yeah. Moving on to Peru.
Oh,
Nice.
This is Andres from Lima.
So cool.
He says, I recently discovered your show. I'm having a blast viewing every show while collecting Korok seeds.
Same.
I recently repaired my Super Nintendo after 20 years, and I'm dying to replay my collection of only 3 games. Super Mario Kart, Super Punch Out, and Super Mario All Stars.
Two of those are great.
That's a great collection.
Yeah.
I'm
Probably
thinking
won't return
about
to that conversation again.
I'm thinking about replacing the batteries inside the carts, like I did with my Game Boy Pokemon games. But I wonder if doing this will decrease their value. What do you think, Sam?
So there's nothing sealing the game for the games you mentioned that would decrease the value because like you're not going to break a seal or have anybody notice anything wrong. You do have to solder those batteries, so you have to take them out, and they're like in a little. It's like a watch battery, and it's in a little container that like holds it like a C clip. But it's all soldered in there. And so getting in there with heat and stuff is a little bit risky to the cart. And you have to actually buy a new battery slip in there. And then once you do that, you solder that in and you can put new batteries in at will. So it's kind of a good upgrade. So value-wise, I would say upgraded.
Yeah, increases value.
Yeah.
It's interesting that he's thinking about replacing the batteries in these games in particular.
I was gonna say
Punch Out.
that's
No,
like-
that's codes. Right?
know
I
that
can't remember.
Punch Out
Sorry.
or Mario Kart had battery saves.
Art does because you unlock levels.
Okay.
The original Mario Kart? I mean, I believe
That
that.
Sounds
Like,
possible.
I won't commit to
Yeah.
this, but if he's looking forward to doing that, I looked that up myself recently and have done it before. Another thing that I'm really curious about is how did you fix your SNES? Please write.
I was curious about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's really cool, and there are some basic like power supply operations and stuff you can do with them to fix them. But that thing's so sturdy too. I'm really happy to hear that.
It's
It makes me
also
irrationally sad that I have Super Metroid and these other games on a variety of platforms, but at some point, probably now-ish, my Super Nintendo saves are just gonna go away. They're just the battery in the cart's gonna die. I'm not gonna have my 100% save in Super Metroid anymore.
I've
Link to the
never had
Past.
a battery save issue with any of my games ever.
I
Like,
thought they
still
were
have Final
expected.
Fantasy.
I may be making this up, but I thought they were expected to last about 20 years, which is
Yeah, I've heard that same thing.
So-
I don't think it's been tested, or
yeah.
there's no
they're just like
evidence.
20
It's not
years. Who knows?
conclusive.
Screw up
for
your
every
game
single
saves
thing.
by turning it on and off a lot. So,
Oh, really?
Like there's some risks
It, like,
involved with
scrambles it.
battery.
so if you replace the battery, it's just like a fresh battery, right? And they're you can
Yeah.
your save is gone.
Your
right? You've,
save
like-
is gone too,
yeah.
so you have to keep
So-
that in mind.
Is there any way to transfer your save off of that old battery?
You can
to a
dump
new battery.
the ROM from the cart. That's a really good question. That's really interesting. You
Yeah.
can do it like physically,
Yeah.
but I don't know if anybody's done it.
Uh,
Super cool.
I was reading recently a forum topic about there's a huge amount, especially this year, an increase in pirated carts hitting like the secondary market.
Oh, yeah.
in eBay, like N64 games. Like no one's exactly sure where they're coming from or what happened, but
Or
like
how it's a good business.
like a game like Conker's Bad Fur Day for years was consistently like $80 on eBay. It's just a rare N64 cart, and now they're like $20 on eBay. And there's way more of them, and like pirated Super Nintendo N64 carts and other platforms. They're everywhere.
So it's
now.
the
they're-
contour of the game as the print of the label, and then inside it's a newer ROM of it.
It's just they're just like bootlegging it,
they're
right?
print like
They're manufacturing cartridges for cheap and then grabbing the ROM off the internet.
someone somewhere, like there's some EEPROM printer,
Yeah.
some like that spun up and now is just churning out counterfeit games. So if you
and that happened with systems. Remember how the DS had counterfeits? Jeremy Parrish, when he was working one up in office here, got like this I think it was a lime green DS Lite.
Yeah.
And he's like, "This is gorgeous. I can't believe this color existed." And it doesn't exist. It was a knockoff,
It's
but
interesting.
it played the games.
Andres from Peru also says, I also bought an NES Classic. I didn't have an NES growing up, so many games are new for me and I find them very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
I suppose that Sam or the others could give some tips on how to get better at these old games.
Well, I mean, one thing I would advise you to do is look up the cheats for them, because that's what we did back in the day. Is that it allows you to play later levels and stuff like that. Look, first of all, on the NES, you had the Game Genie when that came out.
Oh,
you could
man.
play all the later stuff and learn those levels and then return. I always like that strategy. It was like, just learn the later stuff, skip ahead. But there are codes for games like Metroid and stuff like that, which just make them more playable. Like you can turn on all of Samus's powers and just kind of explore and have fun. Like that's a good way to do it.
it's
Punch
crazy
Out,
to
I have no
think
tips for it.
in 2017 that the Game Genie, you totally just like opened a door of like a flood of memories. Where like that was a huge part of my youth. I
Same.
feel like I always played every game with the Game Genie, and yet I'd kind of forgotten about it for a few years.
For me, it was Game Shark.
Well,
That's
yeah,
what I
and
used
in like
to-
a
It
modern
breathes life into a game that you own. You played it all summer.
Yeah.
You're bored of it. You might have had like a 3-year-old game. Then you just get Game Genie and Game Shark and play with it.
Well, and just like the idea of a technology, like something that literally like bolts, not literally, but figuratively bolts onto your system like, and then you just stick the cart in it. Like, it's insane.
It
Like,
reprograms it.
yeah, and like reprogramming the game, and like you're putting in these 20
Game Shark,
flipping through
sometimes
the
you
book.
take it out, like take out a disc and then put in another disc and then like.
Yeah, I think you could do that. I also used one for Game Boy.
Oh, nice. That one's really classic.
I used that one for Pokemon a lot. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Such a cheater.
Yeah. I'd beaten it like 3 times. I needed.
Well, then
More.
when we moved into like the PlayStation era, didn't it come like on a memory card? The cheats came on a memory card that you could buy.
think you could buy.
Yeah, and GameCube even they had discs that you could buy. That was just the game. It was like The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, Game Shark codes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
It is very
Crazy.
But to this guy's point, I think look up. And we did a really cool, comprehensive, just really long page of all the most useful cheats for the games. So like Bubble Bobble, you can skip to 100 levels in, and like start playing those later.
Yeah, there are
levels,
codes to do that. Yeah, and then what on the NES Classic is Contra on there, or is it just super?
Yeah, they're both on there.
They're both on there. Okay. Well, so the Konami code works at least in the first game.
Yeah, in the second game, there's a different code. It's like up, down, left, right, BA, something. It's not up, down.
Shit up. Weird.
Yeah, it's different.
Punch Out is just a puzzle game. You just gotta learn the patterns of the fighters.
But you can use codes to skip ahead and learn those fighter patterns. That's just my only
Yeah,
tip.
that's true.
Make sure you. Oh, I have another one. We can't talk about this all day. I know. I'm
could.
excited. If you have game settings on your TV, like for games, what's that called? It's called game mode.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Usually, make sure those are on because for Punch Out, it's not playable without it. And
That's what I
if you
would
have it on
Solves
CRT,
it solves any latency issues.
Okay.
yeah, you can't use a CRT because it's HDMI. Well, I mean, I know there's some overlap there, but you have to like hook these up to something with no latency.
It was that was exactly what I learned. I bought a new TV years ago and used it. Like I played video games on it years, and, but never had an issue until I tried to play 80s games.
Oh, no.
And then I found this huge input lag. And I'm like, modern games are like so kind of fuzzy with their controls. I'm like, how did I not notice these fairly lengthy, many, many milliseconds of input lag until I was trying to play, it was Super Mario World. And it was like you jump and then I was dying to like every enemy because the timing wasn't quite right. And
You'll run off an edge of a cliff.
Yeah.
You're about to, you want to jump on the last pixel and you just plummet.
And it was mind blowing to me that I'd played, modern games for years without noticing it.
Yeah.
Until I needed to play something.
That
more
means you got
precise.
really good at first-person shooters with lag.
Yep.
Doesn't that blow your mind?
Yeah.
That
And if
means
you
that like
just
every time
learned
you're
it, yeah.
aiming, you're like swinging just a little
Dealing
bit
with
past
that,
a
yeah.
headshot and shooting it.
Yeah.
All right, now let's travel from Peru to merry old England.
Ooh.
This is Shane Joshua, and he says, I've been a longtime fan of IGN and listening to GameScoop for the last 6 months, and I love it. I often listen on my way to work. I'm a British Bobby. I don't know what that is.
Pop.
He's a
Yeah.
cop? Really?
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. He says, the question I have is around sports licenses. Prior to licenses in the UK, we had at least 10 titles to choose from, such as Kickoff, Striker, Imlin Hughes Soccer, and the legendary Sensible Soccer.
Fun.
These all-
One of those is not real. Figure out which
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
That's today's 20 questions.
It's interesting that they would name their own soccer games soccer also. He says these all range from pure arcade madness to subtle simulation. Since 2001, I've been a big PES fan, and this was a game in the PS2 era that was superior to FIFA. Unfortunately, it lacks the licenses for the German Bundesliga, I think that sounds right, and English Premier League. Luckily, there is a decent edit mode on the PS4 which allows you to update uniforms and rosters, but the Xbox One won't allow you to upload images. Mini footy, read soccer fans, avoid this game because of the lack of licenses. EA has made it next to impossible for Konami to obtain these licenses. They pulled a similar stunt with the NFL, gaining exclusive rights, forcing the better game at the time, NFL 2K, to die a slow death. We have seen where there is a level playing field, such as the NBA license, EA has struggled. The NBA literally allows anyone to use the license, providing it is of value to them. If a developer wants to do NFL Playground style game, that wouldn't even dent Madden sales because they can't because EA has the license on lockdown. But where licenses are shared, games are forced to be on top form each year and not just give minimal overhauls or updated rosters. This is great for consumers, great for IPs such as the NBA. So my question is, why don't more IPs such as the Premier League, Bundesliga, or the NFL share their licenses so we can have more gaming options? The simple answer,
Jonathan?
I mean, it's a business decision on the part of those companies, and obviously the NFL, Madden is still well respected. It doesn't hurt the NFL's image in any way, and so obviously they made this long-term deal with EA. I don't see a reason for them to want to shake up that deal and possibly bring in the opportunity that someone might make a bad licensed NFL game at this point when they know Madden is a sure thing. I can see a company wanting to make that decision, but it's obviously a decision each specific league has made. Obviously, the NBA is more open to it. NFL, not so much. In terms of specific sort of territorial soccer teams, I'm not. Again, I would assume that's just case by case basis. But
I mean, it's money.
Yeah,
you
the
know?
simple answer is that
EA
money.
backed up a truckload of money to the NFL, and they said, "All right."
the current licensing deal makes financial sense to the NFL.
The NFL, I think, is less worried about boosting the creative juices of the gaming industry. That's not their primary concern with Madden.
Yeah.
They want it to make money, and the NFL is such a massive industry in America. If they're making the money, they're not going to complain.
Yeah, the exact figure that EA pays the NFL for the exclusive license isn't public. However, people that follow sports and games estimate it's the NFL's second most lucrative licensing deal after TV.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Which would make it
Yeah.
upwards of $50 million a year that EA pays the NFL. So that's a lot of money.
It's come a long way since Tecmo Bowl.
It's true. So let's say another company wants to make an officially licensed NFL game. Before they even put any money into development, they need to come to the NFL and offer them more than $50 million for
To break the
tie
deal for some reason.
break the contract or wait
for the
until
contract
the
to go
contract's
up.
over and say, then we'll come to you. But then that's also on the part of a game company. If another major publisher was like, okay, we haven't been making Madden NFL games in years. Let's try doing that all of a sudden.
Exactly.
That's a huge expense for the gaming company also. So I can see from their point of view
take
not wanting
them-
to do that at this
It's going to take them 2 to 3 years to make the game.
Yeah.
They've got to pay all of their developers to make
that
it.
upfront money is so
have to-
insurmountable.
They have
It's
to start,
unproven for
and then-
them.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then they have to start scanning thousands of players' faces, recreating the stadiums, and they have to start from scratch. Whereas EA's got their
I mean, the whole Madden
Every
football
year.
machine, builds on its game design and its code, although it did move to Frostbite finally. But, the machine of a whole apparatus for getting the stats for each player,
exactly.
the stadiums, the commentary, like the idea of making, even if you have problems with Madden from a game design standpoint, which is valid, like how could a company even try to make a superior product?
It seems almost insurmountable.
So what you could do is make an amazing football game that's so good that the license is like diminished
Exactly.
by it not being associated with this great game.
Yeah.
So that used to be more possible in the 16-bit era.
Yeah. Well, and it's also
it's
hard.
It's not easy.
They got away with it by doing cities. They would do like Houston versus Atlanta. But now that you would use all generic players,
Well, it's more difficult too
be
because
weird.
Madden is part of the NFL advertising cycle. It is built into that yearly cycle, so they wouldn't want to have to sort of split their attention to 2 games.
it does make me wonder if Madden's the only game in town, which it is.
Yeah.
And they've gotten themselves into such a dominant position for all the reasons we just outlined. What if when the contract's up, they're like, we don't want to give you $50 million a year anymore. We want to give you $30 million a year. What the NFL can decline.
Yeah.
But then I don't know who's gonna
That opens the floodgates.
What that opens the door
then
to. I really don't think they'll ever be a traditional like Madden competitor, but it opens the door for like an NFL Blitz or like some silliness for some other people to come in with what was the NBA game that was like NBA
Street
Jam recently?
Oh, Playgrounds.
Yeah, like
as the email.
like an NBA Playgrounds version of the NFL. I really think it's a shame that we don't have anyone else putting a little bit different spin on the game of football.
Even the backyard games back in the day for backyard football, baseball, they use licenses and official names of players. But yeah,
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I was not a business major, but let's just say EA pays the NFL $60 million a year. I wonder, does it make financial sense for the NFL to say, look, EA, we're gonna cut your cost to $40 million, but you're non-exclusive anymore.
Yeah,
So then they
exactly.
can
I
also
wonder
say
about
it's $40 million from Activision also,
then
and now they're making $80 million a year.
Yeah.
That seems like that would be a financial situation that could work out.
if
in
the
their
other
favor.
companies are willing to, yeah.
Yeah, play ball, so to speak.
Yeah. I think
Oh, because it's a football.
Yep.
yes.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're picking up what I'm putting down.
it's he touched on it. It's especially tricky in the game of soccer just because every different country has its own Premier League. Like one game has a Premier League, which is the world Premier Soccer League. But if you're an American and you really care about Major League Soccer, for example, like maybe one game only has Premier League and one game has Major League Soccer. If you're interested in the simulation aspects of it and training players and stuff like that, then you probably want to have a soccer game that has the German League and the Italian League, and the other top leagues. It's so fractured and global, and each company signs its own agreement. That it is, in soccer in particular,
it's gotta be tough.
It's very tricky.
But speaking of soccer, I looked at PES at E3 because we had it on the live show, and even though I don't play soccer games, I thought it was really cool that what the detail that they go to, that they strive for. They a crowd in South America is going to behave totally differently than a crowd in Germany or England, and they actually like build that into the game, so like the crowds have their own chants and waving their own paraphernalia and stuff like that. I thought that was really cool.
I mean, soccer games, like football games, they've been building on them for years, so they kind of run out of. I remember their big feature one year was they got like the real coaches for each team. Like now we actually have these 20 Premier League coaches. That might have been last year or 2 years ago, and they do like they gesture the way that the coaches do in real life, and it's like on the one hand that's super cool, but on the other hand, you're like pretty far removed from like soccer on the field at that point.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, there's a way for FIFA and Madden, all those games, to be modular in the way that this is FIFA from now on, and we just do yearly updates to the game. But that also completely changes their business model.
It's almost time for me to buy another. I buy one soccer game every console generation.
By that time?
Yeah, I think it's about that
do
time.
FIFA?
I don't know, FIFA or PES.
What about Mario Super Strikers? Did you play that?
Ooh, man, that game was so good. Sega Soccer Slam.
Yep.
I'll play FIFA with you.
All right.
I used to play.
All right, this is Big Tommy style
Oh, I don't like that.
from London. And
That is great.
he says, during Game of the Year watch last week, Marty mentioned some great indies from the first half of 2016, notably Oxenfree, The Witness, and Firewatch, which were some of my favorite games of last year, along with the criminally underrated Pony Island.
Yeah, I love Pony Island.
However, 2017 has also been a fantastic year for indies with titles such as Hollow Knight, Night in the Woods, Little Nightmares, Edith Finch, Sexy Brutale, and Nex Machina. I feel many of these did not get as fair a share of the news cycle as their 2016 forebears. Do you think the higher number of higher quality AAA releases in the first half of 2017 has overshadowed these?
To an extent. I mean, it's been a packed first half of the year.
Yeah.
And especially Zelda and Horizon releasing in a week of each other sucked so much of the air out of everything.
I think that's a really good point. I mean, last year, The Witness, I believe, came out in January. And it kind of had that month to itself of just everyone on every podcast ranting and raving about it. And this year,
Before that, Broken Age was the January game.
And Oxenfree and Firewatch were both early as well.
And so this year, sort of the first half of the year, indies did maybe get hosed a little bit.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I mean, I reviewed the Sexy Brutale and I loved it. And it's sort of the thing I've told everyone I talk to, like, hey, play this game. It's 5 or 6 hours of your time. But it's also just, it completely passed everyone by because it came out within a couple weeks of those games.
So it's not just coverage, the time that we have to talk about it on GameScoop or other IGN shows, but also just people's game time. Like last year, I played through Oxenfree and I played through some things that, maybe I wouldn't. But this year, like, I haven't gotten a Night in the Woods yet because I put 60 hours into Zelda, and everyone's playing Resident Evil and Horizon.
Exactly.
Persona, it sort of squeezes out the game time that you have. For
Yeah, I've been playing so much of those games you just mentioned. The only indie here that I have played is Nex Machina.
Which is great.
Yeah. So I still do really want to check out at least, Little Nightmares, Night in the Woods. Hollow Knight seems cool, but I think it's only on PC right now.
Okay.
I actually did play Hollow Knight, and even as a big Super Metroid fan, I thought it'd be right up my alley. And it was a little slow for me.
Really? Interesting.
But I know that that's a minority opinion, and that reviews on IGN and everywhere else were very positive.
Yeah.
Sexy Brutale is only on PC?
No, it's on PS4 and Xbox One also, I believe.
Okay.
It's totally worth playing. It's about 5 or 6 hours. That's worth it.
What type of game is it?
It's sort of a mystery puzzle game.
Defies description. Good luck.
It's a little weird.
Is there
it's
action or is it
top
more like
down? No,
choosing?
it's more you're exploring the environment and trying to figure out certain clues to solve murders. But it's got a very cool aesthetic. The soundtrack's amazing, and you're basically in this mansion where time loops. It's basically Groundhog Day, where you have to solve murders and prevent all of them within the single span.
I like that kind of thing, like juggling it, like Majora's Mask style.
Yeah.
I will have to find some time to check out these games. This is Justin Lane in Cookeville, Tennessee. He says, hello, Scoopers, longtime fan of the YouTube show. So my question is, with the recent release of the brief animated Castlevania series on Netflix, do you think this is a test run for Konami to prove that there's still an interest in the franchise? Symphony of the Night is one of my favorite games of all time, so naturally, I'd love to see a return to the gorgeous side-scrolling masterpiece, similar to the original PS1 game.
Pretty interesting.
So,
I guess I never really gave any thought to where, maybe Jonathan, where this show came from. Like, I remember it was announced, and we said to get Castlevania.
Certainly a surprise.
Yeah, so when the announcement happened too, it was this weird thing of we didn't know if it was official at first. Like Adi Shankar, the producer, had announced it, but we didn't know if Konami okayed
There was
it or
no
was involved.
Konami
No,
press release or
Konami
anything
didn't
like
say a
that.
thing, and they didn't really give official comment on it. It is,
Weird.
of course, officially licensed and a legitimate thing, and
Yeah.
it's a pretty
They didn't
well-done
coordinate that
show.
announcement, which is unusual.
Yeah, it was very much done by Frederator Studios, the animation studio that did it. Adi Shankar, the producer, and then Warren Ellis wrote it. And so it was more it wasn't a Konami project. And so I don't know if it's really a thing of Konami testing the waters of interest. I think it was someone came with them with a great pitch. They had this done. And they were like, okay, like let's.
Their
let that
licensing
live.
department was all that touched it.
Yeah. There's no indication that this was a, hey, if this does well, we'll start making more Castlevania games, especially because it's made based on Castlevania 3.
Yeah.
And also pulls in a little bit
Dracula's Curse.
Yes, and also pulls in from some other games, but that might be a spoiler if I say which ones. So,
Okay.
yeah.
It's I think it's more of a test for Netflix, or maybe not even a test, but they just know like they're spending more and more money to produce original anime, or at least pay like fund, be the producer of someone else's anime that they're making.
Yeah.
They have multiple shows of their own now, with more on the way. It's a growing category for them, and so I think they wanted to. This was appealing to them for that reason.
Yeah. An original creation, but still a licensed product that people know.
Yeah.
Specifically for them, and they renewed it on the day it came out for season 2 with double the episode order. So it was 4 to 8 episodes instead.
And you've watched the whole run already?
Watched all 4. It's maybe 100 minutes.
Yeah,
it's,
I
it's
gotta check it
essentially
The 4 episodes are basically a movie.
yeah. Adi
Is Grant
Shankar.
Dynasty in it?
yeah.
Yeah. I was like totally ready to go on a different path, and you threw me off. Adi Shankar, the producer, sort of talked about how originally they were pitching this as a movie way back in the day, sort of like a lower budget live action Underworld-esque budget movie. And he was like, I couldn't
Glad
do
they
that because he
avoided that.
loves it. And he's like, I didn't want to do it that way. And so they did it. They had the potential to do it now in this format, and it works pretty well. I think some of the plot decisions I don't love with, I like that the first episode, without spoiling too much, is spent entirely on Dracula and building him up as a
Heard about
character that you should care about him, but then he essentially disappears for the rest of the show, which is a little bit of a bummer.
Because he turns into a bat?
Yeah, he just flies away.
just
into
flies
the night. There's just
Or
a
is the rest
small
of the
bat.
show
in
in
there.
a mirror?
Man,
It's just all. You are on fire today, Sam. I like
Good
this.
damn
goof.
with it. Dracula joke.
He
Fire joke.
since he wasn't on the show last week, he's got some.
Everything
Pent
pent
up
You guys
I
had the
like
show
it,
without me?
Yeah, we actually did.
We talked about it.
But I really enjoyed it, and I'm super excited for more. The season as a whole feels like a prelude to the actual show, which kind of bummed me out because I got to the end. I'm like, all right, I'm ready for Castlevania, and this was more setting up who the main characters are because it pulls in Trevor, pulls in Alucard, pulls in
Grant Dynasty.
It's good we're getting a season.
Siffa.
We're getting a season 2 then. At the end of this,
Yes.
maybe we'll have like a really interesting, cool body of work.
Yeah, and that was the good thing. It did leave me excited for more, and it certainly the action is really well done. Everything is very ballet-like in the way they're fighting. A lot of sword fights and things, but it's much less so. The monsters you'd expect from Castlevania are not.
We
the
call
brunt of the focus.
me with my daughter. We talk about vampires more than you might think.
Cool.
It comes up a lot. I think because we look at the Where's Waldo books and there's like a few spooky
Yeah,
pages
there's
with
the
vampires.
mansions. I love those.
But we call everyone always jokes that they're gonna mess with their kid and like always call blue red, and then like their kid's gonna get to kindergarten and then be weird. Obviously, no one does that in real life. I hope. But the one thing I do is we call all vampires Draculas. And I say, look at all those Draculas over there. Look at those Draculas. Those Draculas are bowling in the corner of this page.
It's like the misnomer with Frankenstein, right?
Yeah.
Build on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But it is also the producer of the Castlevania show. He's also producing an animated Assassin's Creed show.
Yep.
Which was just announced. He revealed that
not
last
for
week. I believe.
Netflix.
Yeah, well, they haven't said where it
We-
is,
well,
and
maybe.
it
We'll
could be, but obviously that is a different production company. Will probably be handling that. But this shows the potential, I think, for animated adaptations of games in a way that we haven't seen before.
Is Castlevania the best adaptation of a video game ever?
It might be one of.
It's a really low
Yeah.
bar.
Bar's pretty low.
The bar's low, but I think it is definitely up there, if not. Yeah.
I mean, you gave it what, an 8.1?
I didn't review it. IGN did give it an 8.1. I would definitely say probably for me personally, high 7s, low 8, like that. Yeah.
Jonathan score.
Yeah, the Jonathan rubric. It's just Gilmore Girls at the top, and then
The Jonathan
everything
rubric
below.
is the name of your podcast.
Yeah. No one listens.
My parents actually did do a goof on me when I was in like 3rd grade. We were supposed to bring in an infant photo of ourselves, and they gave me a picture of my sister wearing a dress and told me when I was first born they thought I was a girl. And I took it into school. And
And you told that story?
I told that story to my teacher.
Damn it.
Yeah, my parents played a mean goof on me.
That's really mean. I like it.
But as for Konami testing the waters to gauge interest in Castlevania, I don't know. The modern day Konami does not seem interested in making video games at all.
Yeah.
But slot machines, though. Oh, man.
Yeah, maybe they're gauging interest in a Castlevania pachinko
yeah.
machine.
Yeah, I think it's more Hollywood testing the water.
But you know, you do like a Symphony of the Night. Hopefully, Justin Lane in Cookeville, Tennessee, you are aware of Bloodstained, which is forthcoming from the
Ega game.
one of the, I guess the main producer on Symphony of the Night. Yeah.
Do you think anybody's talked to him about? Oh, we should get in touch.
That's
with
actually,
him.
yeah.
About the Netflix show,
Don't
or
air
what?
this part of it. Let's discuss this off.
Okay.
No, I'm joking. Yeah, that's actually.
Cool.
Sticking with the whole.
We're buddies, just so you know.
Okay.
Damon and I met Ega.
Yep.
Took pictures with him.
We whipped with him.
He had a cowboy hat.
We can
We
dab
did.
with
Whipped
him
it.
now. Yeah.
Sticking with the whole video game adaptation
Or not.
subject.
Or we could.
Dan in Milwaukee, Wisconsin says, after watching the Castlevania Netflix series, I was really happy with the way it turned out. Even with some criticisms about the series' length, occasional animation issues, and a somewhat rushed time with Dracula, I found it to be very enjoyable. Hit a lot of the right notes for what I'm looking for in a Castlevania adaptation. IGN gave it an 8.1, which is higher than Resident Evil Final Chapter's 3.5, and Assassin's Creed's 6.5. That checks out, right?
Yeah, it is higher.
Given the generally poor performance of video game films, is it smarter to focus on the small screen? TV has a lot of advantages over films, and we seem to be in a golden age of television. Should video game films be shelved in favor of working within the framework of a series? And what video game series would you like to see take a chance on the small screen?
I think all screens should be shelved in favor of video games. We should get a Castlevania game.
No, I mean, we already touched on this a little bit. I think it avoids a lot of the pitfalls of, video games are voice acted anyway. And anytime you have to cast a live action, like, who is going to be your actor that's going to play Alucard? Like, it's just awkward, right? Like, you're setting yourself up for, like, people to sort of criticize your adaptation at that point. And if you do something animated, where I know he didn't specifically say animated, but I do think that's pretty a smart route to go. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to think, like, there's almost no limit to the number of franchises that I wouldn't watch an animated show of. I'd absolutely watch an animated Mass Effect. I'd watch an animated almost anything,
Yeah.
Mega Man if it was skewing towards a younger audience.
When I think the movie versus TV argument
There's some
too is
there's some Mega Man cartitunes you can check out.
Yeah, I was going to say,
they're making
but I
a
mean,
new
they're
one
brutal.
also. They're
is there
doing a
another
new
one
series. Yeah, they announced it I think
Is
last
it
year.
X based?
No, I think it's original Mega Man.
Well, he's also part of Captain and the Game Master. And he says Mega in front of
So
everything.
Simon Belmont.
mega cool.
Yeah, Simon Belmont also appeared as part of that. He's very vain.
Yeah.
It's like Castlevania. I think that's the joke they were getting at.
Okay.
But it wasn't explicit, and he just
Everything's
came off
pretty
as
on the
very
nose.
pompous and strange.
Everything's pretty on the nose. Like Mega Man says Mega.
Yeah.
Icarus adds fake Latin suffixes to everything, so he says like, "Cool, let's do the Maximus."
Yeah.
really
Mother
bad.
Brain sounds like an old woman who's been smoking her whole life.
A little bit like, well, go ahead, Jonathan. We can just
No, we
riff
can
on
just keep
Captain
doing
N
this
all
for
day.
fun. Yeah.
It's a show that we watched when we were
Yeah.
kids.
Oh, I know of it. I know of it. Yeah,
It's kind of obscure now.
I think I know of it via old Game Scoop
Yeah,
episode.
Yeah, probably.
But so yeah,
You're
I
welcome.
think the movie versus TV discussion. I think TV lends itself more just because games usually are adapting a thing that could be 10 to 50 hours, and so it, especially with expansive casts and everything, it allows you to not have to shoehorn in a dozen different characters into a 2-hour movie that may not work. But obviously, I'm still excited despite some of the past failures for the new Tomb Raider movie. Given the right talent, I think you can still do a good movie. But I think TV is definitely where I'd prefer to see these adaptations happen.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm happy that the Castlevania series sounds like it's turned out well. But there's nothing like I'm happy to keep my video games.
Sure.
There's nothing that I'm like, I really need this game to be turned into something I can just watch.
Yeah.
That's not really. Nothing.
And I think
I have a burning
obviously the
desire for
best
that.
game stories make you feel part of it because you have to play it.
Yeah.
And removing that step kind of removes part of the point of the stories.
Yes, agreed.
One more email this week from Aaron Kurtz, and he says, "Hello. Recently, there's been an absurd amount of content that I want to consume, both games and TV. As I've started having less time in college, I've had a tendency to try to double things up and play some games while I watch TV. If playing something more simple like Hearthstone, I'll frequently watch sports or something similar in the background. Certain intense shows like Game of Thrones are obviously off limits. I'll also listen to your podcast while playing some slower parts of Zelda. Sometimes I feel like I'm not getting the maximum enjoyment out of each activity, but sometimes I feel like I got more done than I would have usually. Do any of you do this sort of thing? And if so, what's been your experience with it?"
Youngest first.
I do it with podcasts especially, but I tend to stick with more arcade-based games when I'm doing that. Like I've been playing a ton of Nex Machina, but I'm down in the rhythm of that game enough that I can listen to an episode of Nerdist or an IGN podcast.
Isn't it funny when you miss 5 minutes when that's happening? Now?
Yeah,
You're like, whoa, I just got really engrossed in this game.
Yeah, it can kind of get crazy, and I love that, but that's how I tend to do it. I've never really done game and TV show because just for me, I'm so invested usually in the TV shows I'm watching. Like I'm picking those shows to be invested in them. And so I tend to keep those separate. But I do know people who do. It's like playing Overwatch with I'll stream whatever the new Netflix show is on the side.
Yeah, no, I'm not about that. I can't.
I do see
Hearthstone's an exception just because that game is so slow, and I feel like every opponent I'm against wants to just rope every single one of their turns and just take effing forever. It's a slow paced game, and so I'm on my computer when I play Hearthstone. I don't play it on my tablet or anything, and so I'm usually just tabbing over, and while my enemy's taking their turn and reading Reddit or a message board or IGN, and then when it's my turn, I tab back over. But I don't like to mix. I'm like Jonathan. I like to focus solely on whatever it is that I'm focused on, and don't like to listen to anything or anything of that nature.
For the most part, I'm the same. I do make an exception for Hearthstone and shows like The Bachelorette.
Sure.
If you were watching last night, I'll totally play Hearthstone. That doesn't require my utmost attention.
I have that same vice with, unfortunately, Big Brother. Which I watch every summer, 3 nights a week, and it is very easy to
3 times a week.
It is on 3. Well, it's on 3 times a week, and then there are 24/7 live streams you can subscribe to if you want to. I don't.
What are those?
Well, so the whole show is people living in a house for the whole summer. That they're.
Well, the 24 hours is not 24 hours of their lives.
Yeah, you're watching them in real time live in their
After they've
houses,
signed
and
up for
people you can sign up for it, and people do live blogs of it. It gets really intense in the Big Brother world. Look forward to my new Big Brother show on the Jonathan rubric. But yeah, that is the one exception where I will play a deeper game because that.
But I would never do that with any drama.
Yes.
But I do see even people here in the IGN office will be like watching Better Call Saul in a second window while they're editing a video. Oh, and it just breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the best stories of our time right
Well,
now.
especially shows
that's
that
not the way to watch that.
they pay so much attention to their aesthetics.
Yeah.
Like especially Better Call Saul is they focus on the visuals, and to ignore that defeats half the purpose.
That's a really good point. I just remember I used to listen to music of my own and play video games all the time. And I haven't done that in a decade now because games got so audio focused.
Yeah.
And everything is dialogue, and the dialogue is sometimes good, usually not. But I really focus on games entirely.
Yeah. Even something like Zelda that doesn't have music all the time, the audio is still so good.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's just there's just like little like piano grace notes happening here and there that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
But I think now that you mentioned it, I could totally podcast in Korok Seed. I could do that.
Yeah, something like that. When I think you're grinding away at something, I definitely totally understand that need. I think something like if you were playing Journey and you decide to listen to a podcast, that would defeat half the purpose, because especially games with great scores these days.
Yeah.
I love to listen to even Assassin's Creed Syndicate. It was made by the same composer as Journey, Austin Wintory, and it's a beautiful score. And even if I played a dozen Assassin's Creed, I listen to that game because it sounds beautiful.
You one tip, I actually don't recommend it, but a lot of people do recommend listening to podcasts slightly sped up. 1.25
I've heard that,
or 1.5.
I've done it by accident before.
And their argument is, podcasts an hour long. Like I have a limited amount of time. If I can get through an hour long podcast in 40 minutes, like I get those 20 minutes back. But I think it messes with the tone of like sometimes a really, really long pause in an interview
means something.
Yeah, exactly. So it is an option, and it's so popular that pretty much any way that you're listening to a podcast probably has that function built in to speed it up, including like the default iPhone podcast app. But I don't do it, but it's an option that's there if you're just looking for easy ways to get some time back.
Yeah, that's true. It also, I found out, messes with any music you put on the show. Makes it sound different than perhaps
Really?
was intended. And that brings us to video game 20 questions. Our suggestion this week comes from Trevor Selby, although we don't know where he's from, an undisclosed location.
Ooh.
This location. All right. Sounds
Let the questioning begin.
Does this game take place on Earth?
I don't know.
You're spending a. That's not a. We don't,
doesn't-
I don't know.
well, why
Okay.
are you?
That shouldn't count.
Okay, all right, all right.
I feel like if you don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Is it Robotron?
Yeah, exactly. That's on Earth. Yeah, is this a game that came out after 2000?
No.
Okay. This game come out after 1990.
Yes.
Okay.
90s.
Okay, is this a
90s
16-bit
kids
era
remember.
game?
Yes.
Cool. Is it a console exclusive?
No.
It's on Jenny Jen's, SNES, all the above.
TurboGrafx
Everyone's favorites.
6.
Is there multiplayer in it?
No.
Sounds like Flashback. That one?
Yeah, we got there.
Do you know that was last week's?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Did you not know that?
No.
I thought you were making a joke.
No.
That was last week's.
That's amazing. That's an obscure game.
Yeah.
They got it.
That would have been
Wow.
weird. Wow, that's a really strange coincidence.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely didn't know anything about it.
That's
and
insane.
but how do you
Yeah,
get it?
that's
All you
crazy.
know is that it's a 16-bit
16-bit.
game without
With no
Single
multi.
player.
without,
Nope.
yeah, single player 16-bit game. Oh, it sounds like Flashback.
Oh man.
I don't know. It's a game I rented for both systems.
Oh well, that's why you have memories
That would
playing
make
at
sense.
both
Yeah.
places. Is it based on a license?
No.
Ooh. Okay. That's really good.
Is it a platformer?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
We're skipping over Jonathan here.
It's fine. It's a little out of my wheelhouse. Does your character have a gun?
Yes.
Okay.
Ooh, that's good.
Is your character an invertebrate?
No.
That's an Earthworm Jim
That was good.
specification.
Yeah, I was with you. Okay, was this game developed in Japan?
No. That's 10.
Okay.
Cool.
I really like the Japan-US question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. It's kind of a platformer. It's
So wait, kind of a platformer, multi-platform 16-bit game where you have a gun
No multiplayer.
and no multiplayer. So, what were those?
not a license is kind of weird, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
mascot platformers, just like Bubsy and everything.
The gun things kind of tripping me up.
Oh yeah, the gun.
This game-
Earthworm Jim would have been easy.
This game
Yeah.
come to arcades, or is it like you could play it in arcades?
No.
That eliminates any of the like
Sunset Riders and stuff like that. Was that?
Sunset Riders is console only. I think even though it's Treasure, I don't know.
Maybe it was just on.
Well, I was thinking like I don't know. I know Bad
not
Dudes is a
platformer.
melee game, but it's not like a Bad Dudes arcade thing that like came home.
And he said it was a platformer, basically. So
Yeah.
it could be Battletoads, Double Dragon.
I forgot
stuff.
about
It's kind of a
the platform thing. The arcade question.
Did this game have any sequels?
No.
And
It
it's
might be
not.
kind
and
of obscure.
it's not. Like,
Although I was wrong about that question last week. Apparently, Flashback did have a sequel.
Okay.
But this game does not have a sequel that I'm aware of.
Okay.
All right. Are you an animal in this game?
No.
well, wait. Is man an animal?
Manimal.
Greatest game.
Related
of all-
question.
I was asking that. Yeah.
Related. Don't. This isn't a 20 questions question.
Are you
Would
including
you
it?
consider man an animal?
I mean, technically, but in the spirit of this game,
game,
I was not
okay.
counting
All
that
right.
as an
Okay.
animal.
Oh, cool.
So you're a man with a gun.
Assumedly.
or
yeah.
woman.
It's a platformer. It's not a license.
Multi-platform.
Yeah.
Rystar is a star, though. He's not an animal.
I think that's just on Genesis.
right. Do you?
American company.
Is there any
Or-
sort of vehicular play involved in this game, or do you want?
I don't think so. Yes.
What about like Pitfall: The Mayan Adventure?
I mean, that was a Nintendo game, obviously. Atari, but then they made more. There was no sequels, though.
Okay.
That's what Jonathan asked.
Well, yeah, there wasn't any sequels to Pitfall: The Mayan Adventure in that context.
Mm-hmm.
But I
It-
mean,
it fits the criteria.
but Pitfall's not a '90s game. I mean, the Mayan Adventure. I understand what you're saying, but I don't know. I consider that part of Pitfall.
If it's not a sorry, if you had
Does this take? You didn't know if it takes place on Earth too, so that's kind of a weird thing. So yeah, Pitfall is definitely on Earth. Because it's the Mayan adventure, and the Mayans are from Earth.
I was gonna say,
getting that
I
from
would
the
hope,
name.
yes.
But it's going to be something like that. Plus, I guess that's a license. No, it's just
Space
No, it's
Mayans.
just
Old EA Activision sort of platformers. It doesn't
yeah.
have to
We
be.
could narrow it down to the company, but that gets a little bit difficult.
Yeah, I
for
was
me.
I'm
gonna
just trying to
That's
orient
too.
myself around what kind of games do I need to be picturing. The only thing I can picture is Chuck Rock, but obviously you don't use a gun in Chuck Rock.
There's Joe and Matt Caveman Ninja.
I don't want to go down a caveman game rabbit hole.
Is this a sci-fi game?
It's really tough.
Ooh.
If it is, it's soft sci-fi.
Did the Bonk Zonk type games come to multiple systems?
No, they were TurboGrafx only. I mean, years later, but at the time they were only
Why am I stuck in Caveman now?
TurboGrafx. Yeah, because I said Chuck Rock, which I think was a Genesis.
I'm trying to think of any way to narrow
any
this
cavemen
down
have
anymore
guns?
because we have a lot of information.
Yeah.
We're at 15 questions.
Okay.
5 questions left.
I think you're right about Sunset Riders. That's like a good path for us to be on.
That's Capcom Treasure.
That was Treasure. I don't know.
So
how-
that doesn't.
Treasure's-
That's Japanese, but
Yeah,
I know what you're saying. But if it's light sci-fi, then it can't be like some like weird Western game. This
I like a Mega Man knockoff, a Western Mega Man knockoff.
yeah. I mean, it could and it's not Mega Man, right?
Right.
I wish it was Earthworm Jim. That would make this all so easy.
Yeah.
How about
Third Gym is definitely sci-fi.
because there's
Yeah.
spaceships and stuff in it.
Yeah.
Should we? Does it matter if this game was well received or not?
It probably was. Otherwise, we wouldn't remember it. Like the answer, I feel like the answer to that question is always yes. We can ask.
And there's no sequels.
Yeah, that's why it's like a one game. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Was this game well received?
Yes.
So think top Super Nintendo games.
Yeah, we just did top 100.
Is this in the SNES Classic Collection?
No.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Pretty good question. Though.
Yeah. Is
No.
there anything gameplay wise we can narrow it down as well of that era?
Well, it was sort of a platformer,
Sort of
but I don't know
platformer.
what else. And you shoot a gun,
And there's not like vehicular based.
but we don't know it was a 2D platformer. I kind of don't want to burn a question on it at this point. No vehicles.
I'm just trying to think of our top 100 list right now.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
There's like the ActRaiser type stuff that's Japanese. There's
All the best stuff back then was Japanese, right?
shooting. There's the Mickey Mouse type stuff. That's all Capcom. Man, Damon, this is too hard.
It's
3
not a
questions
license.
left.
I don't know if we're gonna get this
And
one.
not a license. So
Yeah.
like all the good Western games, I feel like were licensed from that era.
Yeah, really funny Western licenses. How about
Not an arcade port. Are we gonna be mad at ourselves if we don't get this? Okay.
Maybe.
Don't burn a question on
Yeah,
that.
should we ask if you're like a man or a lady or a do you have like an occupation that's obvious or we didn't ask about speaking?
Yeah.
Is your character
Are you like a spy or are you
Yeah.
like maybe something like
One of
that that would
those.
help us narrow down theme?
James Pond Jr.?
I was thinking James Bond.
Is there jeez.
Jonathan is useless.
I'm
These
so
are, no,
stumped,
yeah,
guys.
sorry. I
This is too
barely
hard.
owned anything from that era.
You've got
Uh,
2 narrowing down questions and then a guess.
has this been really released on virtual consoles?
I don't know. I can't answer that one.
Okay. Is there spin-offs of fighting games that this might be like the spin-off of Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, well,
Or
they
spin-off.
released a Sub-Zero one, or what one did they release? They released 2 of them, and one of them may have had shooting. In
Is
it.
the
One of them-
company still around
Ooh, that's
What do you mean, the
that's a good
company?
question.
that made it?
Oh.
The developer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Okay.
It's 18.
It's got to be like so. It's got to be EA or Activision, right?
Yeah, EA or Activision or Sony did make.
I would think like Vector Man or
Japanese.
something, except that was a Genesis exclusive,
Right. That's a good one though.
and I don't think Blue Sky's still around.
What about like Bucky O'Hare
And it
or
got a
Jazz
sequel.
Jackrabbit or like those?
Well, you play
Those
as a
are-
human.
Yeah. Or you don't play as an
Oh.
animal.
What was the Cliff Blazinski's game before
Yeah.
Unreal? What was that 2D?
That was Jazz Jackrabbit. That was on
Yeah.
PlayStation.
Yeah, you're right. Jazz Jackrabbit. That's why you just said that. But there's another one sort of like there were 2D Duke Nukem games way back in the day that came to PC.
All right. We have 2 questions remaining.
So there's like Adventure Island, that's Japanese, and there's like weird like Goemon games, that's Japanese.
Yeah, well,
Just
like
trying to
there's like
trigger memories
Battletoads,
here. Yeah.
where you play as a human, but like stuff like that. I know it's not a platformer, but like
There's the Final Fight type games, UN Squadron. I'm just trying to think of like all the games on
Yeah.
the top 100 list. I did that list.
And a company that's still around too.
I really think it's probably like a Western version of something like Sunset Riders or Mega Man, and we're just not getting it. Damon, so he's trying to keep his face very.
Does this? We already asked the sci-fi question. Doesn't take place in the future. Did you say? Did we do multiplayer? It wasn't.
We asked
no
it's
multiplayer.
no multiplayer.
It's a well-received
Multi-platform, platformer-ish shooter.
Well,
Well, sorry, it has a gun in it.
the gun.
Okay. Maybe your character never uses the gun.
It's
Just has a gun.
it's right from a game.
We're going to bring this one home.
It's actually a good idea for a game.
Got to spin those last 2 questions.
Oh, jeez. Was this game known for its graphics?
Remember when it was Karnov?
I don't know. That's hard for me to.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll give you an extra question. It's
Okay.
hard for me to
right.
say.
Uh,
I don't know what reviews at the time.
And it's unclear if it takes place on Earth.
mhm.
Would that narrow it down for you if we knew?
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
No, not for me at least.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of the most specific that we can get to.
Have we ever played it in the office?
Ooh.
Like you and I?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
I mean,
One question remaining.
I've got
Well,
nothing.
Yeah, I don't have it.
Really, you guys aren't anywhere near it?
I don't think so.
Would you guys believe it is Blackthorn, the
I don't-
cinematic platformer?
I don't even know what that game is.
Yeah.
It's maybe it's no only the Blackthorn is only notable because it was made by Blizzard.
It was made by.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
It's also really good.
Yeah.
It's another cinematic platformer, much like Flashback.
We
And
could have gone with Last Vikings. 'cause
Out of
it
this
was-
world.
Okay.
No, that was just on Super Nintendo.
1994.
What kind of game is it?
Cinematic platformer
Like
like Flashback.
Oh, okay.
And you have a shotgun. You blow people away.
It's
Wasn't
sort of
there
it's
another
sort of a
game like-
lost Blizzard classic.
And I remember you're like in a jungle environment, but I don't know if it's supposed to be Earth or not. And you're saving people
I would call
like
Blackthorn a
POWs.
fantasy game in my memory, but it's been
Yeah,
a
see,
long
I didn't know if
time.
there was some like in the later the game.
Does it look like
Yeah.
cartoon graphics?
It's 2D. It's not, you know,
It's
it's
16-bit.
Yeah, I
got
know that.
good animation.
I'm aware of that game, but so it is known for its graphics, though. I mean, not 20 Questions way. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has a weird style, right?
I don't know about
That's a really tough one.
Yeah.
Weird
Yeah.
stuff me. I never owned that or played it or know anything.
Yeah.
About
1994.
it. I don't think it's on our top 100, is it?
It's not on the top one. It's anyway. Yeah, developed by Blizzard, published by Interplay, which is just a name now. I think they sold off all their gaming IP.
Yeah. One of Blizzard's first games.
It's a good game. And then I thought that might be tricky because we did Flashback last week.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
you
what
would be
really it is.
expecting another cinematic platformer.
I wouldn't have been able to name it anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't feel too.
couldn't
bad.
got there?
That was great.
I have
No,
good memories of
I just
playing
don't know that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good game.
Not my wheelhouse.
One worth checking out. Don't you own it?
No.
I thought you owned like every Super Nintendo game except for 2 or something.
NES.
NES game. Okay. All right. Well,
If anybody has a copy of Little Samson out there that'd like to sell me, I really need it.
thanks for the suggestion, Trevor Selby.
Yeah,
That
that
is-
was a real stumper. I like being stumped though. It's been
You guys had a long winning streak
And now it's ruined.
by Trevor.
That'll always be my Blackthorn.
Just like
The Black
Trevor
Ring
Belmont
song.
ruined Dracula's long winning streak.
Yes, exactly.
So
Sucking
too.
blood.
Yeah. Dracula kind of puts up a lot of L's, though, honestly. Like, he
For as
gets
powerful as he is, it
he gets
doesn't-
resurrected, and then a few hours later, someone busts in his chamber and just whips him to death.
They should resurrect someone else at this point.
Yeah.
See, give
Yeah.
someone else a shot.
I mean, and like he has like a really like poor view of us now because he thinks we're all just miserable piles of secrets. And
I've actually never given any thought to. I've played all the
Might be
Dracula
awful.
games. I like them a lot. It feels like Dracula's kind of just minding his business.
Yeah, and
well, so the whole crux
Belmont.
of Symphony of the Night is that his wife was killed.
Yeah.
Or that he lost his wife. But yeah, so
You're,
occasionally
you're just skulking around his house, though.
yeah.
Like, I'm sure there's some context. Like, I don't ever remember the intros to those games. It's probably like he's gonna reach his full power and then take over the world. But
that's
like,
That's the context.
Yeah.
You can find full context by watching Castlevania on
Well,
Netflix.
the world is just going to be spookier, and nobody wants that.
No, it's just skeletons walking
Yeah, you
around.
know,
Look at that skeleton walking up
They're
the street.
scary.
Like,
They
a
used
couple
to be
would enjoy
people,
that.
and there's just their bones. It's gross.
Yeah.
We all have a skeleton inside us.
Yeah.
We have a little
Learn
bit of
something new
Castlevania
today.
inside us all.
Skeletons are, but are skeletons former people?
Yes.
But
Yeah,
people
presumably.
aren't skeletons. So
Mm.
think about that.
Are we the walking skeletons?
That is all the scoops we have for this week. And I just realized next week is Comic-Con, so I don't know what's happening with Game Scoop next week.
We should ask the host.
Damn,
I haven't given any thoughts. So.
I have
I'm going
20
to
questions
Comic-Con.
about Comic-Con.
Well, so maybe we can do a Game Scoop down there, or maybe we
do
can
well,
do.
let's do a pirate Comic-Con from our hotel room.
Comic-Con?
Pirate Comic-Con
Let's do a pirate game scoop. I meant to say. Let's do a
Yeah, no,
pirate
you-
game scoop, audio only.
from the hotel.
Yeah,
You could
from the
pick a
hotel.
pirate game for 20 questions.
Ooh.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Assassin's Creed
There
Black
should
Flag.
probably be some rum involved in that too.
Monkey Island.
Yes.
Remember, you can always reach us
Yeah,
at the email address gamescoop@ign.com. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
My name is Damon. This is IGN.
Blackthorn!
And we're out.